Good afternoon, everyone. This is Neha McCall, and I'm Assistant Manager at Bridge to India. And I'm delighted to welcome you to Bridge to India's webinar on India grid-scale storage prospects. And it is my privilege to introduce them to you. We have got a stellar panel today to deliberate on this topic. We have with us Mr. Shatanshu Agrawal, Vice President at Greenko, Mr. Abhishek Ranjan, Senior Vice President of Strategy, Head of Utilities, Retail Power at Renew, Mr. Manasvi Sharma, CEO at Fluence India, and Mr. Arun Tripathi, Heading Energy Business, Regulatory and EHS at Hero Future Energies, and Mr. Bharat Reddy, Additional General Manager at SECI. He will be joining us in next 5 minutes. I welcome you all to today's discussion and thank you so much for taking out time and joining us today. Quickly on the format of the webinar, we'll start with a brief presentation on storage market, followed by the panel discussion, which will be moderated by Mr. Vinit Stagi, Managing Director from Bridge to India. And today's webinar will be an hour and 30 minutes long, and we will be taking questions towards the end. So do send in your questions through the chat box located at the bottom corner of your webinar panel. And without spending any more time, I will hand it over to Vinay. Thank you.
Thank you, Noha, and very good afternoon again to all our panelists and also to everybody else who's attending the webinar. Storage is a very hot topic, so we will jump straight into it. And I've got a few slides only to basically set the context. I'll try and run through them as quickly as possible so that we can have more time for the discussion. But essentially, storage is obviously seen as a very critical component of the energy system when you start adding variable renewable energy into the mix. But the fact is that we have got about 120 odd gigawatts of solar and wind, and we've got almost no storage capacity as of now. So there is a sense that we are kind of late onto catching the storage bandwagon so far. The other way to look at it is that even though the variable renewable energy penetration in the grid is only about 10 to 11%, we can see that the discoms are increasingly more hesitant to buy vanilla renewable power. So there is a demand for more and more for peak power and other tailored demand following solutions allied with storage. And we can also see that if you look at this chart on the left, the difference between the hourly prices, over the last 6 years, in 2017-18, hourly prices were almost flat through the day. But if you see the latest trend, last year, the delta between the peak and the off-peak tariff has risen to about 5 rupees or more on a daily basis. So that tells us that, yes, there is the demand supply is becoming more volatile in the day, and there is more acute need for storage, and that is going to grow forward as we grow from 170 gigawatts of renewable capacity to 500 gigawatts by 2030. So I said we are kind of slightly late on the bandwagon. There was a very little by way of enabling policy framework until about a year ago, but of late we have seen a lot of intent from the government. There is, having said that, while there's been a lot of policies which have been announced, but we see that each of these policies does need some more. There are some policy gaps, there are some challenges which need to be addressed to make them effective. Example being, there is an energy storage obligation, 1% for this year going up to 4% by 2030, but there is no compliance mechanism or a penalty for not doing so. There is an ISTS charge introduced for storage projects, but it is only for projects commissioned by June 2025. Obviously, that means that any projects which are tendered now, they may not be able to get this benefit. So it is time to proactively extend this duration if the government so deems fit. There is a pump storage project promotion guideline issued by the government with some nominal incentives. There is a viability gap funding introduced for battery storage in the latest budget, although we don't know yet as to what is the quantum of this funding and when is it likely to be available. Just lastly, the government has enabled ancillary services participation by storage, although these markets are again yet to be launched. And then there is the PLI scheme. We have PLI 1 already, which has been allocated, and this stock of PLI 2 specifically meant for grid level storage manufacturing facilities. There has been a lot of experimentation and you could say innovation in the way these tenders are issued. There are, broadly speaking, 3 or 4 different kinds of tenders. One category is RE plus storage hybrid, and there you could have the main variations are either round the clock power supply or a peak power supply. So a stipulation to supply 50 to 100% output during specified peak hours in the morning or in the evening. Then there are also standalone storage tenders. Either they're technology agnostic or sometimes very specific about whether it is a BESS tender or a pump storage project tender. So there is a lot of activity in the last year or so. We have seen a few auctions completed. The Depending on the tender specifications, minimum COF, supply conditions, penalty for breach of any conditions, etc. There is obviously a range of tariffs that we've seen in these projects. I just want to highlight that the levelized cost you see for the first 2 categories, it is for power plus storage, although storage is a very often a small component of these projects, whereas the levelized cost for BESS and PSP that you see is for storage only. And last row you see the various winners in these projects. So we are lucky to have with us Greenko, Renew, Acme, and Fluence, who are all kind of very active in these projects. So we'll try and get their perspective. So this is a very quick comparison between lithium ion and pumped storage. I think I will skip over this in the interest of time. Hopefully we'll get more insights from our panelists. And so we come to the key discussion points. So we're going to discuss basically what is the key market need and use cases, policy framework, obviously, what is the viability of storage, why is there a hesitation on part of the consumers, technology assessment, and any market or technology or financial barriers in the way of this market. So we are still waiting for Mr. Reddy. He should, from SECI, he should join us hopefully in the next 5 minutes or so. But let me start with Shatanshu. I'll start with you. Hats off to Greenko because Greenko saw need for storage when the rest of the market to some extent didn't, and you actually put your money on the table in developing these projects. Just wondered, has Greenko done any assessment of demand in relation to renewable capacity and the overall power market as to what is the kind of demand India might see over the next 5 to 7 years for storage projects in India?
Hi, thank you, Vinay, and thank you for the kind words. We did our assessment, a little high level some time back. So our estimate of storage capacity, and that of course is subject to what kind of renewable capacity we eventually end up adding. But if India were to realize the 500 gigawatt target by 2030, then to our mind, storage capacity anywhere between 450 to 600 gigawatt hour might be required. Again, see, some of the points that we need to keep in mind while thinking of energy storage capacity is what the eventual load curve will look like. So for instance, there's a very interesting trend in India currently where discoms are shifting demand in solar hours to take advantage of the cheaper solar power. So if some of those initiatives continue, they of course have limitation in terms of that demand which can be shifted, and transmission cost is a major determinant there. But depending on how load curve evolves, how the balancing areas are defined. See, in India, and this is interesting, every state is a balancing area. There is no all India balancing in that sense. So you might see some pockets where energy storage demand may be higher and earlier than for any other state. So to cut the long story short, I think to my mind, 500 gigawatt hour by 2030, subject to we realizing 500 gigawatt RE capacity is there, and this is only utilities, right? So there are now new segments which are emerging, which is industrial decarbonization, green hydrogen, green ammonia, which will actually increase the storage requirement significantly. So it's good time for storage industry to our mind.
Thanks, Shatanshu. So I just want to note, obviously CEA and other government agencies and even some think tanks have carried out some demand assessment. And according to them, the number is somewhere around 150 to 200 odd gigawatt hours. So again, as you say, this depends on a number of assumptions in terms of load profile and RE penetration, etc. Mr. Reddy, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. I hope you can hear me.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Vinay.
Good afternoon. So we just started, but since you're here, let me, I think we will, come back to you. SECI has obviously completed, I think, 3 large-scale renewable storage hybrid auctions, and I just wanted to, get your opinion on what have been the learnings from SECI's point of view, and what has been the experience, for example, in tying up this power with discoms? What is the feedback from the discoms? And I'll come with more questions later on.
Yeah, the question is a very apt question actually. Initially, when we started the first 2 tenders, we had tough times also. I think the representatives from Greenko and Renew, they know that. Okay, so how we faced the difficulties to sell the power, to make the discoms understand the requirement and all. It might be because of the COVID happened that 2 years also, that also means created some problems for us. But of late now, when the market was become very hot, maybe in the last year. Okay, so from there onwards, the thinking of the discoms has been changed, and now they are proactively coming to approaching SECI to release the bid with bids with storage, with high PLF, these things. The demand is coming from the discoms right now. Today also we had a team from Delhi discoms working on this type of things only, and many discoms actually, wherever we go, they are saying that this one. And also you might have seen that some discoms, they came out with their own on the similar type of tenders, okay, like either RTC or peak watt type of tenders. So initially there was problems. Now I think it is different. As Shatanshu was saying, this is the time for storage. Everyone is realizing, every discom is realizing. So we are hopeful that means going forward we'll be bringing a lot of bids like that. Even now we are discussing with another hybrid tender like this only, with high PLF, okay, and some storage and with some assurance in the peak hours. And also we are working with other discoms on RTC type of bids also. Because of some guidelines issues, so it is getting delayed continuously. Because demand is there from the discoms with us, and we have to see the regulatory framework how to manage that. But that only it is being delayed. Otherwise, we have sufficient capacities in hand to work on this RE plus storage project.
Okay, and I know that the first peak power auction which was completed, that has already been tied up with the discoms.
Yes.
The RTC, the 400 megawatt RTC tender, has that also been fully tied up?
It is completely tied up.
Okay. So, obviously the prices which are coming out at around 4 rupees, 4.5 rupees, etc. You see that is being satisfactory, and discoms are willing to kind of pay the price and move in that direction.
Discoms are okay with that. Even 4.5 rupees also discoms are okay. They are saying that now. Even some discoms, they tried on their own also. They are getting similar type of prices only. Okay. So they understood that. They understood the requirement of power with energy storage and the high PLF and some assurance during peak hours. Okay. Some flexibility is required. Okay, for them. So means many of the major discoms, I think they have completed their RPO targets, and they are having enough simple RE capacities. So there are some discoms, especially in West and South region, they're facing curtailments also. So They're also equally they're looking into this actually. But obviously last year was a tough time because of the its commodity prices were high. Because of that, there might be some price disruption is there. We are hopeful that we can complete this even 4.6 rupees tender also. We got at least around 2-3 gigawatt of interest for this now.
And going forward, I know the government has issued a tender issuance trajectory like 50 gigawatt this year. Do you have any sense either in terms of quantum of
I think that
storage-based tenders?
if you see the recent order on the 50 gigawatt, there is a split of the order is given among the various implementing agencies like SECI, NTPC, and NHPC, and SJVN. There, the capacity split is also there. Hybrid and RTC is given good stress over there. Yeah, apart from the simple RE capacities. Okay.
So my understanding, sorry if I missed something. I thought it said the wind will be 10 gigawatts, and solar and all the hybrid technologies will be together about 40 gigawatts. So my question to you was: do you have any clarity in terms of how much storage-based tenders will be issued? Is it likely to be mostly storage-based, or is it going to be 50-50, or any other combination?
No, I think you have seen the old order. I think the new order says that. Let me open that.
Okay.
I think it is given with some hybrid and RTC targets also given in that actually.
Okay.
Okay,
So in any case, I mean, given what you are working on, what is the likely shape of tenders in terms of design, like RTC, peak power tender, or any other design, and the quantum that you're expecting over the next 1 year, as far as SECI is concerned?
Within this year, at least we will be doing 5 to 6 gigawatt of RTC type of thing. RTC or high PLF hybrid will be doing 5 to 6 gigawatt. We can do in this year itself, this April to next April.
Okay. And in terms of structure, will it broadly follow the same kind of RTC tenders that we have seen so far?
We have been working on different type of structures also. We are working with some states where the developer has to match their load requirement. Okay. So that type of thing also we are planning.
Sure. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Reddy. I will come to Abhishek and Arun. Both of you are working, or your organizations are working on various storage and RE based projects. Now, I understand that storage technology is changing very fast. Obviously, last couple of years, there have been some challenges in terms of cost and procurement as well. How do the developers, when you're bidding today, decide what is your approach to bidding? What kind of capex and opex and operating assumptions do you make in terms of number of cycles, degradation, etc., or augmentation of batteries? When you have to put a fixed tariff today for a 25-year project. Abhishek, I'll come to you. Let's start with you, and then I'll ask Arun to also comment on that.
No, sure. Thanks a lot for the question. See, the sizing of the battery cycles, how much wind, how much solar to be put in over there, needs to be decided upon what is the construct of the tender. So that will determine what kind of storage, what kind of RE needs to be put in, and where do we put it. So the RE profiles vary from geography to geography as well. So as already mentioned, the RTC kind of tenders or the peak power tenders, these are not a single location tenders. They are multi-located. And why multi-location? Because when you do the energy modeling and rope in various wind profiles, various solar profiles, and do a complete scenario analysis using some software tools, you get to know what is the compliance level of these tenders. That is number one. That is the priority. Once you have satisfied the compliance levels, there are multi options or multi choices or combinations of wind, solar, storage. And storage could be hydro pump storage or electrochemical storage, battery storage. So there are multiple options, combination to that. And that comes out as a result of this. When you talk about the number of cycles, again, in some of the tenders, the number of cycles are given. So minimum so many cycles have to be there per day. Okay, so that is the driving factor. other factor in battery design, and I think Manasvi will pitch in later on, is about you oversize the entire thing in the upfront for the entire duration of the project, or you don't do that and you do incremental add-ons. You have a natural degradation of solar panels as well, and that is taken care of in the LCOE calculation in the model. As well as in the battery storage, the same thing happens. You have the cell efficiency going down over year on year basis the OEM guarantees. So that is taken care of in the model, because upfront you are locking in a tariff. So when you are upfront locking in a tariff, you are taking the risk of both the RE generation as well as problems in the degradation of the storage as well. Now, from the point of view of the construct, if the construct is very solid and very definitive, it helps in evolving a better construct and a very competitive tariff. As Mr. Reddy talked about 4 rupees, 4.5 rupees or something kind of tariff, these are achievable. And to better still, if it is a kind of RERTC which he is talking about, alluding to a lack of some kind of guidelines which is in pipeline possibly, so that will help in more robust design instead of SPO. In fact, without mentioning SPO itself, you can have storage as a part of your natural solution. Okay, because that kind of construct will demand storage. You need not have a kind of pressure from the SPO side. And I'll tell you, there are certain constructs wherein the SPO is being satisfied naturally even more than that. So 1% was the SPO, right? So for the year 23-24, in some of these constructs, already 2 to 3% worth of storage of the tender construct, annual energy in the tender, which is required by the discoms, is already being satisfied. So all I'm saying is, if the tender construct is decided in a very meticulous manner, storage is going to come about naturally. Even today, we don't need the prices to come down drastically. Even today, whatever the prices are, the rates at which the RE tenders are going to come. Very recently, the hybrid plus peak thing has come up. Their storage is already there, as you know. So renew was, I think, 4.69. Even these tariffs are now being perceived by discoms as palatable because the tariff curve we have shown already. And
Correct.
these are non-scalable, Vinay. Okay, if you see the bundling
Correct.
scheme of the government, they are saying all the older plants, they need to be bundled and then it will be given to every discom. And that is going to be a scalable tariff. So discoms are now wiser, saying that this, given the bundling scheme, you have a choice. So you go for bundling scheme for the next 5 years, but in the meantime, you approach SECI or maybe other implementing agency or maybe on their own. You go for your own RTC kind of, which is not for it. Vinay, over to you.
All right, understood. Thanks, Abhishek. So, Arun, I mean, I think you can comment on that in terms of how Hero sees these developments. But also, talking to some developers, I got the impression that they still don't believe that they can take the risk, particularly on best technologies, and PSP is not available to all the developers. And the belief is that oversizing RE and trying to minimize the battery component size is possibly the way to go forward, until things kind of stabilize, let's say at a future point of time when they can set up more battery capacity. Do you see, I mean, that is how you see things as well?
Yeah, hi Vinay. Good evening, good afternoon, sorry, everyone. This exactly, actually, if you see, it's all dependent on the tender construct. So I think Abhishek has explained very well. If the tender construct demands for a particular hour power requirement, that with the penalty linked to that, that means you have to supply. And RE is not predictable and it's not available during that period. So you can't schedule a power based on the availability of RE. So if suppose discom needs a flexibility and flexibility in the schedule also. So if they are demanding a particular hour of power, that means you need to have a storage. It's only you can optimize the storage by having a different mix of RE, a solar wind combination, and the geography mix as well. So it may not be possible that without storage you can comply that would be very difficult scenario. But yes, optimization of a storage is possible by adding or maybe having a different combination of a solar wind and in different geography.
Sure, Arun. And do you, as a developer, believe, and we will come to this PSP and BESS discussion a little bit later, that both these technologies are available to you if required, particularly given the very different characteristics in terms of development cycle, gestation period, etc., etc.?
So Vinay, yeah, as you mentioned, there is a long gestation period for a pumped hydro, but there are developers like I think Greenko is here. They are ready to offer this solution to other IPPs also to offtake and make their RTC or maybe a different kind of a bid. So uh, there are two options. Either you tie up with someone who's having a pumped hydro capacity to make your tender, or you go for a new development of that will take a long time because the gestation period and a lot of approval is required for that. So it's all dependent on how you want to plan. If you're planning something for next 4-5 years, definitely you can look for a site. You're going to go for your own development. But if you're just having a specific tender requirement and you need a pumped hydro, you can go for a tie-up with any pumped hydro developer.
Sure, sure. So let's, I think it will be useful to delve into some of the technical aspects and the techno-commercial aspects of both BESS and PSP. Manasvi, would love to have your insights here, particularly on the battery storage systems. And last 2-3 years have not been very easy. Costs have gone up. Supply side was looking quite uncertain. Just please update us on what are the latest trends, both in terms of technology and cost outlook that you see. And is lithium and is LFP really the way to go forward in the current environment?
Sure. Thanks for the question, Vinay. So on the first point, in terms of the supply prices and how are they still seeing an increasing trend? No, they're not. Lithium prices have also softened. There are certain prices which are still increasing, and so I mean there's a big up and down which is always getting impacted across the industry. But yeah, in general, the lithium prices, which are one of the major components that one is talking about, that we have seen softening of those. So yeah, to that extent, we see that the battery prices to what peak we had seen earlier during last year and earlier times, they have now started to soften. And in general, the overall pricing, I think, is also seeing a fairly good trend. Now, having said that, there are other parts of other components of overall ecosystem which impacts anyone in general, whether it is inverters or whether it is other parts of the balance of plant equipment. I think there are certain issues in terms of the supply constraint being there, and I think those are something which is being faced by industry in general. And those are elements which are so I think it is the lead times rather than the prices which are currently a little bit of a constraint. But having said that, I think those things are also getting scaled up, and we are seeing easing there as well. So in large context, the news is better. The news is about improvement. So I think on the price front, that's the part. On the technology part, I believe while and Fluence, by the way, we are a technology agnostic firm. We are looking at more from an energy storage point of view. So we have already got working along with QuantumScape, which is looking at solid state batteries. And we have been evaluating all the battery technologies from our point of view in terms of saying what is the way going ahead. And the way we see it right now is in the immediate term and in the short, medium term kind of a time frame, and the kind of investment that you see globally in LFP and lithium-based technologies is far outstripping any other investment which is going into other parts of the technologies, and also the kind of commercial scale which lithium has achieved. So to that extent, I think in medium term, we are seeing that lithium is the way to go. In fact, I would probably hazard a guess of saying that we're talking about another 5 to 7 years where we definitely see that lithium will be the most competitive technology. Sodium is a very good contender, but I believe we believe rather that it is still in the commercial maturity curve. It's still reaching there, and we believe it will take some more time.
Sure. Manasvi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. I can't see you.
Okay. I'm sorry, my webcam has been turned off for some reason. So on the LFP side, on the technology side itself, what have been the improvements in the LFP technologies? Because we used to talk about the number of cycles has obviously been going up, reliability, degradation, etc. Can you just fill us in on what are the latest performance specifications when it comes to LFP batteries?
So on LFP side, while I will, so in general, there has been a curve which has been on a very improving trend. You would have recently, even heard about CATL coming up with higher battery density solutions. So in general, whether it is energy density, whether it is in the form of degradation, whether it is in the form of overall augmentation part or in terms of commercial parts, I think in general there has been an improvement trend, but it will follow a steady curve. We are not expecting to see a huge change. I think there is an improvement which is happening all across the board, across the parameters, and we believe that it will continue to see that trend in the short medium term.
Sure. And obviously, we've had PLI scheme, one round of PLI scheme in India. Are you hopeful that in India's battery supply situation will improve anytime in the foreseeable future, or will remain dependent on imports?
No, I think there is a significant, I mean, the effort which government has taken in terms of the PLI scheme and the overall focus which is there, and which is really commendable. And I think because of this entire focus, for sure, there is a lot of action which is happening on module and cell manufacturing part, which is going to take a lot of, center stage in the coming couple of years and few years, if you talk about it. And I think after that, the focus will also shift to other parts of the battery, whether it is the cathode, anode, or the separators or the electrolytes, current collectors. I think the focus will shift there as well. And I think with all of these, falling in place, because and with also the fact that we have now got very good quality lithium reserve also now available in the country, I think with all of this, if you look at putting in place, I think there is going to be a substantial percentage of the battery requirement which is going to get met by the kind of capacity that we're talking about in the Indian context, getting met by the local manufacturing. However, on the other parts of the value chain, I think it will be a slow progress or a steady progress in terms of how the balance part of the battery will continue to get sourced. But I think we are also hopeful in terms of saying how that can also get localized over a period.
Thanks, Manasvi. Shatanshu, will come to you. PSP is very much the talk of the town, as far as it seems to be a very dominant and popular theme across the sector. Please give us an update on the various projects. We know that Greenko is developing projects in multiple states. If you can just tell us about what is the status of these projects, and what is the also status in terms of tying up demand. We read in the press, obviously, that you've tied up demand with contracts with some CNI consumers, NTPC and others. So if you can give us both physical construction as well as contractual status.
So when on the physical construction side, Pinapuram, which was our first project, is well under construction. I think we are expecting to start commissioning units end of this year. So that's going to be our first project, PSP off stream, which should come online at the end of this year. We are going to follow it up with two more projects very soon. One is in Madhya Pradesh and second is in Karnataka. In our case, all our projects are off-stream PSP, so in the sense that we are creating either both or at least one reservoir as a new reservoir. and even the second reservoir is an existing reservoir. So we are not part of any river system. The whole idea was to have projects where you have significant operational flexibility in terms of charging, discharging. So from a physical construction perspective, yes, I think over the next, by end of 25, 26, we should have, I don't know, close to 6 to 7 gigawatt of PSP capacity up and running. All 6 hours project. We might end up doing better because there is a significant push from the government also on the development activities. In terms of contracting, yes, the whole idea was to make available PSP capacity to various segments. So we have entered into contracts with CNI customers, wherein they will use this storage capacity to enable their RERTC or other similar other solutions. In case of distribution utilities, we are now seeing a significant traction in the market. One tender has happened in Karnataka, and I think I agree with what Abhishek said. Storage will happen by itself as discoms continue adding RE capacity, which is informed variable. The storage you don't have to sell essentially. I mean that there is no alternative to it, right? In energy, discoms still have that question in front of them, which is the most cost-effective solution for me to meet my energy demand. Fundamentally, it's commodity energy, whereas storage, I mean, there could be some alternatives in terms of broader markets, balancing areas, so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, you would need storage. So as discoms keep adding RE capacity, and even demand terms are fairly variable now. So we have done some analysis where we are realizing that the peak demand growth, the maximum, the minimum demand, there is a gap which is widening. So and fairly fast for that matter. So which implies that there is a lot of variability across day for discoms to manage. So distribution utilities will definitely be one big segment. They obviously cater to most amount of demand in the country. NTPC was an interesting case wherein a public sector went out and contracted energy storage capacity. Perhaps their idea was also that those structured RE solutions will have sort of greater demand in the coming years. Another segment is going to be green ammonia, which will which essentially is for our own purposes. So these are few segments where we see energy storage capacity being contracted over the next few years.
Sure. And sorry, maybe I missed. What is the amount of PSP capacity that you've tied up so far already?
Significant, I would say. So, yeah, it's significant. So the demand is there. I mean, I would not be so much worried about demand for energy storage. If you can create right solutions, right business models, it will serve. PSP particularly because obviously it's fairly competitive in that sense.
Sure. So the government came out recently with the pump storage project development guidelines. There's a host of measures over there. Some of them were already existing, for example, whether it is ISTS waiver or etc., etc. Anything interesting over there? Anything you think is really going to help you, or vice versa? Anything which you were expecting is not there, or that you would still want from the government?
So you will never have the no ask from government, right? So you would always want something from them. But to be honest, to Indian government and I think to other stakeholders, there have been significant push on not just PSPs but in general for energy storage. I think these guidelines do a good thing that they bring a lot of those various things which were being talked about to incentivize PSP at one single place. So document itself is very good. I think there were some improvements from the draft document which was put out. So for instance, they retained the self-identified projects, etc., which is a very good step. We think that the market should be allowed to take its own course. So let people identify PSPs on their own and bring it forth for development. Governments may choose to auction other sites. I mean, that's their prerogative. But that entire process of market identifying sites, developing them, and catering the demand should be encouraged for that matter. I think some of the steps around the simplification of environmental clearance, ISTS waiver, clarity around the charging power taxation, etc., some of the good steps, which will be important as more of these projects are built out by everyone.
Sure. Thanks, Shatanshu. Reddy ji, I wanted to ask you about VGF. The government did announce VGF in the budget, but there seems to be no further update in terms of the quantum or the timeline. And it seems that many states are counting for this VGF scheme to be issued as soon as possible because they want to utilize it, and they will, obviously I'm sure there'll be more demand then they'll be supplied, because 4 gigawatt hour does seem quite small given the nature of demand. Any comments on that, either in terms of timeline or any insights on quantum of VGF that is likely to be available?
Actually, it is in the approval process. I think 2-3 levels it has been cleared. I think it is at the highest level right now. We had a meeting with Energy Secretary also last week. We have been instructed to finalize the bidding documents. Okay, by the time we get the VGF approval. So we are working on it, and soon the bidding documents also will be ready. We are hopeful that within 2 months' time it will be announced, and then we'll issue the tender also.
Sure.
We are
And
working
any
on
indication of the amount that is likely to be made available?
No, actually, it is around 40% of the project cost, something. Okay. Okay. Then it is 1,000, 2,000, 1,000 megawatt, like that. 3 phases will be there. Okay.
Okay.
Not it's a one go 4,000 megawatt hour. Okay. So it is 3-year program. I think it is scheduled for 3 years. Soon it will be out. Okay.
Understood. So, Shatanshu and Abhishek are saying, storage, there's a huge demand, market will create on its own. Arun, if I can just ask you, where do you see the demand? I mean, everybody loves to talk about value stack, ancillary response, ancillary services, etc. But we see the opportunity, at least given the current market construct, mainly in terms of shifting the demand profile, or basically marrying the renewable power output profile with the demand profile. Is that really the main application? Do you, as a developer, when you're building any storage projects, do you assume, do you see any other use cases? Do you assume any upsides from other applications?
As they mentioned, the main use case will be peak shift only. I think ancillary services, it is being discussed, but the capacity required for ancillary services in comparison with the peak shift application, maybe 1/10 of that, or some maybe not even 10% of that. So there the requirement is for 10-15 minutes, the higher capacity there for 10-15 minutes. So here the requirement is there from 4 hours to 6 hours is the requirement of energy storage. Okay, the projects we are being announced also, it is like that only. Okay, so demand will be there from the project side, and also another area is this transmission optimization. If they can take that, is one thing, and also in the DISCOM network also we have to explore. Actually, there also significant capacity will come. Okay, and even in the C&I sector also. Okay, so where it will maybe it's a single shift operating C&I sectors, they can consider having energy storage. They can reduce their demand charges and all. Okay, so for them it's a good business case. There I think the next storage capacities will come on the distribution network. Okay, the ancillary services, I am also doubtful that the capacity might be very less actually required capacity. Yeah. Okay.
Sure.
Majority
Arun,
is
any
the
comment?
projects only.
Sorry,
Majority
Reddy,
is the projects only. Yes. Please go.
No, Arun, any comment on that? Particularly as a developer, where do you see the opportunity, and are you assuming anything in the base case models?
No, I agree what Reddy ji is saying. So if you see that the RE penetration in our grid is increasing, and especially the solar, and so this come up with a inherent problem. So everyone knows the duck curve problem and that shift. But if you see the requirement from the DISCOM side, they need more flexibility in their demand. They are not looking for a pure vanilla solar and wind kind of a requirement as of. So this will be a push from the DISCOM. They are looking for a power which is more flexible, schedulable, and as per their requirement. Rather than whenever we generate, they will use it and then they will struggle to find a balance of a power. So that's the way I look, and I think that will drive a market. And if you see for the CNI, there are a lot of customers who are looking for a RE100 or maybe net zero kind of a program. where they are looking for making their operation green. So looking for a RE100 or making a like RTC. So for that also, you need to have a solar, wind, and storage. Without that, not possible. Without storage, you can't make RE100 or you can't make it a net zero program. And second, if you see that even for a CNI customer or even for the government or maybe a private discom side, the green hydrogen. So green hydrogen, if you see in a green hydrogen, you need a RE power. And if RE power, if your COF is low, your capacity utilization factor for electrolyzer is less. So have a RTC kind of a power, that means you're utilizing your capacity or for electrolyzer and to have a better LCH. So this will drive a storage market in a long way. And the Reddy sir said that for a CNI customer, if you see the demand. So right now, if you see for a CNI, there are two ways to look at it. I'll divide this into two parts. One is a behind the meter market, and second is group captive and open access kind of a market. So behind the meter market, the main application is for a diesel abatement or maybe diesel optimization. So there are specific sector or maybe area where there is a scheduled outage or maybe a fixed outage of 1 or 2 hours in a day, where you can have a storage solution deployed and you can get rid of a diesel or maybe optimize your diesel consumption for a particular. And this will make a sense even if you're not charging your battery through solar or wind. Even if you are using a grid, still grid plus storage will make us with respect to a diesel power. And second is a contract demand. A contract demand really a lot of company actually are hesitant to take a contract demand side kind of a solution, where they don't want to take a risk on a contract demand rather than having a application file for getting a higher connectivity. But there are some sector or maybe an area where there is a challenge of getting a higher contract demand or maybe delayed, and this generally that impact their expansion plan. So there, as a solution, people are looking for a storage to deploy to temporarily address this contract demand issues. So I definitely there is a market in CNI as well as on the grid side. A discom is looking for more flexible, more schedulable, or maybe a load following kind of a requirement. So that will address and that will be addressed only with a RE plus storage. A storage can be either pumped hydro or battery or any form of a storage.
Thank you, Arun. Abhishek, your comment on that. I mean, particularly given your background of working at a discom, and there's actually incidentally a question also from one of the attendees. Is there a market for any other use cases or for even price arbitrage when you are building storage facilities as part of your renewable projects?
Yeah, this is a very valid question. What I'll like to submit over here is, let us not put ourselves into issues of like what are the value stacks for the battery. So remember, we were all caught in rupees per unit kind of tariff for a battery. It is very well paid, 10 rupees, 12 rupees, and therefore it can't be viable. So that is a wrong way of approaching any storage, which is a capacity-driven asset. It's flexibility. So there is some disturbance, I guess, some happening. So may I request if
yeah, there is. Even I'm not able to hear you very well.
Yeah, so if somebody can, others can mute themselves and accept the speaker. So that will be, I think that can help. Yeah, thank you. So what I want to submit is we should not put ourselves into the shoes like what are the value stacks, what are the value streams, stack it up and then see if it is standalone basis storage is going to be viable or not. I'll speak on two fronts. One, when you talk about designing of RE utility scale solution for at a large scale for the discoms. So when you are making this storage as just a part of the solution, even at today's prices, it becomes viable. We have seen in the recent tenders of SECI as well. Okay, and that is acceptable by the market, by the discoms, for example. And peak shifting energy arbitrage is the single biggest lever. Apart from that, we all know HP dam has already been introduced. by the honorable regulator, high price DAM. Okay, so these things are already there. So they are the major value adders which are happening. The second thing is virtual transmission. And Reddy talked about transmission augmentation, transmission planning. So when these storage is being sited at the point of injection or point of coupling of the RE at the grid, it is also doubling up as a limiter for transmission, virtual transmission as well. Okay, so that is playing the role. It is not being discovered, I mean, but then it is playing the role. So RE curtailment is going to be reduced at that point in time, because this is being clubbed and co-located with the injection point of the solar or wind, or maybe a hybrid site. Now, from the DISCOM, this is from the utility side and the larger scale. From the DISCOM side, in my previous organization, we set up distribution transformer level storage, very small ones, aggregating to about say 1 megawatt hour capacity. And there the use case was completely different. It was capex deferral. And then the second thing which came naturally was energy arbitrage. So these batteries are getting charged during off-peak hours and then discharged during the peak hours, which coincidentally the peak hours or the peak loading in Delhi, for example, is also the peak. You saw the curves when you presented the curves, the price curves. So the peak market prices coincide with the peak load. Now the third and fourth, if I may say, are phase balancing. And apart from the phase balancing, there is something called loss reduction. So the battery storage also helping in distribution transformer loss reduction. How? By increasing the efficiency, I mean the utilization rate. So the distribution transformers, if you draw the load duration curve, they are at the base loading is only 25-30% of the rated load, which is not the optimal operation. So they are designed to operate at maximum efficiency only at 50-60% of rated load operation. Okay, so these batteries are helping. So that's what is also observed in these 6 DT locations, and they have been running over last 1.5 years now. So what I mean to say is these value stacks are naturally being driven, and we have not talked about the ancillary services markets. Though the ancillary service market, the energy quantum requirement is very low because this is a high C application. Okay, it's not a energy application, it's a power application. There would be instances where the same asset might be utilized both for energy as well as power, that is ancillary demands. And nobody would have to actually specify anywhere else. Flexibility needs to be given to the developers as to how to optimally utilize the assets while honoring and respecting the construct of the tender and respecting the PPA, whatever PPA is being signed. So then automatically these all value streams are getting stacked up. They are going to be used up in your evaluation. Okay, both for the DT and the DT level again. Sorry, not on the DT level also. You have 11 kV and 33 kV level also in distribution companies. Why? Because that level also you have another aspect. So these are STU connected assets. These STU connected assets may be eligible for participating in ancillary markets. And some of these clarifications are yet to ravel up, but then they might be eligible for. So the DISCOMs might be using this also as an energy arbitrage and participation in providing balancing services to the grid, DSOs. So this is going to help the DISCOMs in a way to transition to a DSO role. So megawatt scale, like Tata's, they did a 10 megawatt 1 hour battery in Rohini, India, for example. So one of the good things that they're doing is frequency balancing, frequency support. So that is one kind of ancillary support only, ancillary services. So the DISCOMs can utilize these storage assets as an ancillary support assets, providing balancing to the grid, much required flexibility, and getting paid for it. Because the regulations are already there, it's only a matter of time when the operationalization of ancillary market happens. So a single storage dedicated for ancillary only will not work, because as we know, the number of cycles would be huge, but the quantum of energy being supplied for will be less. So rupees per unit kind of construct will not work there. It will be capacity kind of construct, and that will be variable, market linked. Then again, the utilization rate in a single use case will not justify the installation of a battery storage. So even in energy constructs, you might see that maybe depending upon the construct of the tender, the battery storage might not even achieve 2 cycles per day, and it will have a seasonal impact as also. Like in winters, the even 1 cycle or even less than a cycle a day. Okay. Now, so what happens? So then the battery can be utilized somewhere else. So these all value stacking will be done naturally basis the energy modeling. Only thing is flexibility has to be there in the tender construct as well as the guidelines, while respecting and honoring the construct of the tender. Vinay. Can't hear, you are muted. Yeah.
Yes, sorry, Abhishek. The various use cases and the applications that you outlined, particularly at the distribution end, etc., they're not available to developers who are building these renewable projects tied up with storage facilities, right?
Yeah, so they are at the DT level or a grid. So the developers we are talking about today, they are utility scale, megawatt or gigawatt scale kind of developer, which is energy construct. Okay. So when we are talking about a DT level or a PTR level, that is within the DISCOM, embedded within the distribution network. So today with the developer we are talking about is outside distribution network. So obviously, if they are not into that segment, if they are not bidding for those projects, definitely it is out of bounds for them. Yes.
Sure. Okay, Manasvi, I wanted to, ask you about BESS in particular. India obviously is a very, very price sensitive market. On top of that, there is a perception or, not just perception, but the numbers suggest that, the battery storage is expensive. And on top of that, the international system integrators are even more expensive. So just wanted, how do you create a market? The market need is there. I think everybody is saying, Reddy ji said, Abhishek said, Shatanshu said that the market is there, discoms are willing to pay for it, etc., and the demand is going to come. But do you see demand coming in for batteries? Do you see demand coming in for international system integrators such as yourselves? How do you make it more viable and attractive for the end user?
Yeah, Vinay. So I think this perception probably has to change. The fact is, today, as we speak, we are doing a peak power project, right? Where the as Mr. Reddy was also explaining, we are that construction is going around on the ground. We will be completing the project by towards July, so that is real. So the peak power project with a battery solution is getting, is sitting on the ground right now as we speak, is getting constructed. Similarly, the SECI tender has also proven the fact that with best kind of solutions, it is still viable to get the real numbers which are in the range, which is acceptable to the DISCOM, which is acceptable to the market. And also in terms of, while we're talking about peak power, the similar construct on RTC is also there. And RTC also, we are using a BESS based solution. So I think the perception that the BESS will not work, it's expensive, people like us will probably not be able to play in the market. I don't think these are very right perceptions. And the reality is, today we are in the market. Today we are constructing these assets. Today we are creating the assets which are viable and which are usable, which are robust, which are reliable in the market, and which will, obviously the time will also prove that. But from that perspective, it is there. And also I think the fact remains is, we should, I think Abhishek was mentioning that quite nicely in terms of saying that maybe this rupee per kilowatt hour or kind of a model is not truly the right construct. Right? It is basically, at the end of the day, what we're talking about is batteries. If you see in the Indian market are currently being used for renewable integration. If the flexibility is provided, and even in this, by the way, in this construct, it is already proving viable, as I just said about those projects that we are talking about on peak power as well as on RTC, on the hybrid related projects. So even in that case, it is viable. And if you look at the kind of market which is there on the in terms of procurement of peak power rates, if you look at the rates which are there in the exchange that you see across the year, and I think you presented that graph also. Today, discoms are actually procuring power at least 8 months out of 12 at where the prices have actually, the peak power prices or the exchange prices have actually hit the upper circuit, right? Almost every day. So the fact remains that there is an appetite, there is a need in the exchange, in the market among the discoms to say that we are ready to procure power even at that price. And the fact that today there is an HP dam as well is also kind of strengthening the fact. India as such, if you look at for a brief period when we kind of allowed the ancillary market to also play out without any restrictions for some time, the prices had touched 40 rupees. I think that also demonstrates the fact that the need for batteries will be, or energy storage will be definitely there. There is also the fact that it is available at a price where it can be absorbed in the market as we speak. And in terms of the fact that can players construct this in an Indian market, I think the fact remains is it is getting already constructed.
Understood. Thanks, Manasvi. So Arun, you have a couple of storage projects under execution tied up. How are you going about, what is the kind of value chain or supply side that you have, that you're working with in terms of technology, contractors? Is it a lump sum contract, or are you kind of breaking the battery separately and the energy management system separately, etc., etc.?
So Vinay, we have two projects actually. One project in a KECB, which is still into a very early stage. We are yet to receive a formal LOI, and we are constructing one project in UK, which is a 10 megawatt, 20 megawatt hour project that's for ancillary services market. And there the market is slightly different. It's not like India market where we either procure everything in a discrete, like a battery separately, or maybe with any integrated. So there is a very specific integrators system integrated in a UK market, and there we are looking for a kind of a wrap contract with them with a performance guarantee warranty linked to that. Coming to India market, still because as of now we have not started any construction of project, so it is too early to discuss on that subject. But there is a if you see in a battery price, there is a battery and then there is associated cost. Associated cost is a duty, which is still on a module side it's a 20%, and till the time we have a in-house or maybe in India specific manufacturing, and then there is a 18% GST. That means you are building another 40% of a cost on a battery, which actually is a deterrent. Actually, if we get a something where, and then we are trying to find a VGF as a solution to make this viable. So it's like we are adding a 40% cost here in terms of a GST and a duty, and parallelly we are looking for a VGF as a solution. So definitely we need to support energy storage solution in initial phase, like what we have done in solar, giving us some exemptions on the duty and on the GST as well, and supporting on a VGF side, and definitely that will help to optimize or to have a better tariff discovered. So maybe with that kind of exemption and or maybe a support from the government side, maybe a tomorrow 3 or 3.5 rupees kind of a tariff is possible with the solar plus storage, or maybe even less than that. So that is a very important aspect. We need to find a way, and in fact whenever we represent that into government body also. So yes, VGF will support initially, and that is required to give a initial kick, and definitely after some time it will be such self-sustainable. Or Vinay, you're on mute.
Yes, sorry. So any key execution challenges that you're facing that you want to kind of, whether it is in terms of technology, know-how, viability even, when you're building these projects?
No, so
I mean, I'm just
when
asking because obviously this is very early days for storage, particularly for the Indian market. And I do hear that there are gaps in the marketplace. So I just wanted to get your insight on that.
yeah, definitely the because in India right now we have a very limited system integrator, uh, so that's a challenge, and finding a right partner is important here, because battery solution is not like a solar where you have a panel and just plug in and make it. Here you need to have a proper design solution for a sizing as well as a thermal management and other aspects also. So it will be properly designed solution rather than just having a picking a different component and just trying to plug in into a solution. So definitely a system integrator will help as a so in system integrator it will be of two part. It's whether as a system integrator they will take as a wrap contract, end-to-end supply taking a battery responsibility, or maybe into a different way where we jointly agree on terms and condition or maybe aspects of a battery, where because battery, if battery is a highest capex item in a total solution, and if as a system integrator they try to put a additional margin of 15-20% on a battery, that solution will not make a viable. So if we can optimize the way we want to have a total overall construct of a solution, uh, that will help to optimize and to get a better system integrator into the system.
Understood. Thank you, Arun. Reddy ji, there is actually a question for you from somebody in the audience, and I presume that they are actually working with a discom. That they're saying if discoms want any consultation one-on-one with SECI on procuring storage-based power, who should we contact? And are you willing to basically work with us to tailor make solutions for us?
No, we are interested to work with them. Okay, so they can contact me. Okay, so I am taking care of the implementation of energy storage concepts. Okay, so anyone is interested, they can contact me. Okay, so we are happy to support them. Okay, through SECI or through other consultants or anything. Okay,
Sure.
So we are offering.
And can you just on that note give us some insight into what are the kind of requests you are getting from discoms or from other state agencies, etc., in terms of actual market need and type of solutions that they're looking for?
No, we are working with some couple of discoms now on resource adequacy planning. 3 discoms actually, 3 states, not the discoms. Okay, complete state level resource adequacy planning we are doing. As a part of that, we are also doing the study on how their RE procurement shall be there in their future, maybe 3 years down the line, 5 years down the line, how they have to manage the thing, and by accounting the existing resources available with them and estimated demand in future. Okay, like that we are working there. Okay, so any discom is interested, they can approach us. We will do the complete study. Of course, we take data from them and we'll do the proper analysis, and we can guide them also. Okay.
Good, thank you. So we will ask them to contact us. I think there's somebody from the renewable energy department in the Orissa distribution company.
Okay.
We will share your their contact
Yes,
details.
please.
Okay. I wanted to ask, there's also a question actually on this. Generally speaking, when we compare BESS versus PSP, generally it is regarded that BESS is a much more kind of dynamic, more flexible system with a faster response time, maybe slightly higher cost, but so value for money. Whereas PSP is more of a large scale, bulk scale solution with a longer, slightly more rigid, but a longer gestation period, limited in terms of availability by way of site, etc. Shatanshu, I can't see you, but yeah, you're still there. So there is a question from somebody in the audience whether PSP is easily accessible to different kinds of customers for different applications, or is it really you do see it mainly limited to large scale energy shifting applications at the utility scale end?
So I think that flexibility point needs to be seen in the context of your scheduling regulations as well. Now, I mean, specific to PSP, we can achieve our peak ramp rates in like 30 seconds. We can go from 100% pumping to 100% generation mode in 420 seconds, so that like 7 minutes. Whereas the Indian grid is being planned on a time block of 15 minutes. So my response time is actually better than what a time block, the planning horizon time period on the Indian grid is. So, I mean, as far as flexibility goes, I would agree that yes, batteries perhaps are better, but for most of the end use applications, the kind of flexibility which any customer would require, PSP will be able to deliver that. So I don't see that as a constraint. And again, as I'm saying, it needs to be contextualized in the framework of Indian grid. So for instance, even if I can go from 100% pumping to generation in 7 minutes, you can't make me do that because the scheduling regulations will not allow you to do that. So yeah, I think these things need to be a little bit contextualized also.
Understood. But obviously, given the very different development cycles, and Reddy, this is again a question for you. The moment you say that a project has to be delivered in 2 years' time or 18 months' time, etc., by and large, it is like steered towards BESS, because obviously pump storage projects have a much longer timeline. How are you kind of deciding in your tenders? So far, your tenders have been technology agnostic. Do you want to go in the same direction, or do you want to kind of start specifying which technology to use and allow a longer development cycle to allow PSPs to participate in these tenders?
It's a very good question actually, especially for us when we work the project, when we issue the tenders for RE projects with storage. It's a serious question, matching the timelines. In fact, I'm personally thinking that I think we have been discussed internally also that we can allow them to initially, let us say any PSP is having gestation period of 5 years or 6 years something. The solar or wind projects may come in 18 months or 2 years. For the 2-3 years of that gap, they can utilize any battery system. Okay, maybe any low cycle, low cost battery system can be deployed there. Time being, they can support. Once the PSP is there in the picture, they can use the PSP. Okay, as a stopgap arrangement, they can plan like that. Otherwise, it is difficult to match the timelines. Actually, the 5 years timeline.
Actually, if I remember correctly, the railways tender, which was the RTC tender, did offer some flexibility in the first 3 or 4
they offered,
years.
I think they said they offered that some gas or thermal resources can be utilized, not the storage resource. What we are saying, we are mostly dealing with 100% RE type of things. So what we are saying is, let us say any lead acid company is able to give at least 600-700 cycles for 3 years time, okay, with very low cost, and they can take back also, the buyback also they can do, okay. So that can be a solution for the for any developer, that just for 3-4 years, very low cost and low cycle solution, and take that. Don't go for 5,000, 6,000 cycle expensive solution. Okay, low cost solution, you make it for 3 years, then you switch over the things towards pump storage. That can be the only solution. Otherwise, it is difficult to manage these timelines.
So when I would like to just add to, sorry, this question was not pointed at me, but still let me allow me to add to that. See, in terms of gestation period of PSPs, there are two parts to it. One is the development activities and then the actual construction. Now, as far as offstream PSPs go, where you're developing both reservoirs separately, I mean, the construction timelines can be very less, I mean, context of hydro projects, and you can target, depending on site, of course, and the development conditions there, anywhere between 30 to 36 months to commission the entire PSP. And we're talking of large scale storage capacity, 1,000 megawatt and above 6,000 megawatt hour. So I think the question which was asked is very relevant, but again, in some of the cases, few of the PSPs would have done pre-development activities, so their ability to offer storage capacity would be there in say 30 to 36 months. So REMCell, for instance, was playing on that. That someone who has already started PSPs might be able to offer that kind of storage capacity in 30 months from the signing of.
Understood.
And to add to that, Vinay, if I can add here, so what Mr. Reddy is talking about is allowing the RE developers to add maybe the pump storage at a later point in time, not within say first 24 months, if I understand him correctly. So that flexibility, if it is coming in the tender, it doesn't matter. So maybe if the PSP come in 4 years or 5 years or 6 years, the developer knows when actually this is going to come in. And since it is technology agnostic, so stop time arrangement can be done, as Mr. Reddy was saying. There could be economics around it, there could be modeling around it, while respecting the PPA construct or the tender construct for those entry period of 4 years, till the time your PSP is ready. That is another way. So it's not that when you put in the bid, you had closed your all the options. It's not there. Just like repowering is also, I think there is in policy in wind repowering or some those kind of policies are coming up now. So it's in order to develop long gestation, slightly longer gestation technologies like PSP, this will be allowed or might be under works. So that will help.
Sure, Abhishek. I'm sure Mr. Reddy will be kind enough to consider that. I just wanted to ask, does anybody else have any questions or any, I don't know, requests or comments for Mr. Reddy? Because obviously he represents the government and they're very, very critical stakeholder in the whole process. Manasvi, anything by way of either market design changes, tender design, anything you would like to clarify or advocate for?
Well, it's not specifically for Mr. Reddy, but I think what was raised by Arun earlier, I think that is definitely a point that in terms of looking at various financial constructs of whether it is GST or whether it is duty, which is to be uniformly aligned with overall idea of promoting energy storage. I think that has to be definitely looked at. I think there is also a aspect of safety standards, because at the end of the day on this side, I think that alignment also has to happen with the global standards. I think again that role has to be played by the appropriate authorities, and that has to take into construct as a part of the overall thing. But I think finally, in terms of what I think was also pointed out earlier was the idea, while the flexibility that we have to introduce in terms of what energy storage solutions that we're looking at, I think, and the entire conversation that we had at the beginning of this entire entire conversation was about the fact that energy storage is inevitable. Right? The question was when, right? The question was not whether it is needed or not. It is needed for sure, and with more and more renewable coming in, obviously there is a need for storage, which is unavoidable. But at the same time, the question is also about when. And while we might want to introduce this flexibility of saying that the developers have this choice of introducing energy storage at various points of time as a part of the life cycle of the project, but I think this also problem has to be looked from a larger grid perspective. Of saying that as more and more solar and the renewable is getting added into the system, and at what point of time do we start introducing the storage? Do we need to have storage now, or we can wait for 3 years and then can introduce this? I think that element of understanding also has to be brought into the overall construct of designing how the tenders need to be placed.
Understood, Manasvi. Anybody else, any other questions? Otherwise, I think, Reddy ji, is there any other last comment, anything that you want to add?
No, regarding the taxation and duties, MOP is seriously working with Government of India, okay, to reduce the duties actually for at least for 5 years. in sync with the PLI targets actually. So because duties, once the domestic capacities are there, it's again a different game actually. It's a type of telescopic structure was proposed actually. We have been working with them. I think soon these things will be notified. MOP is seriously working on it on the taxation side also. Okay, that is one thing. But the safety standards, we are developing some of our own projects also. There we are facing, there is no, means different standards are there. UL is having some standard and IEEE, IEC is having some standards like that. We are also working with standard bodies also. Yesterday also we had, I think our team has participated in a meeting at IIT Delhi on especially on standards. We are working on those things also. We are quite flexible in that, accepting whatever the available standards.
All right. And there is a question about waiver in customs duties on batteries. And if GST will prevail, I'm not sure what is, where they're coming from.
Waivering the custom duties, it's reducing the custom duty. It is not complete waiver of that.
So there is no proposed waiver of customs duty.
It is reduction of custom duties proposed by MOP. Soon, right. I think once the decision is made, I think it will be notified.
Sure. And any update on the PLI 2 scheme? Because there's supposed to be a separate PLI only for the
PLI 2 MNRE will be the nodal agency for PLI 2 scheme. I think a couple of stakeholders meetings happened. One was chaired by Honorable Minister also. Okay, we have received some feedback from the manufacturers, potential manufacturers. SECI is also working on the finalization of the document, PLI document. So the intent here is that not to completely focus on lithium-based thing. Their energy density is not an issue here. Okay, non-lithium also need to be focused. Okay, it is not like a EV where energy density is a big issue there. Okay, so we had to pack good volume there within the specified volume. We had to pack more energy. Here we want to promote different things. Accordingly, we are making the document. Okay, so that will also be notified soon. Okay, we are working on the PLA document.
All right, thank you. Okay, so I think that was a very useful discussion. Thank you all so much for your time. If I can conclude by saying, I think what I have taken away is that we may be late, but the market dynamics are becoming more and more favorable. And I think the market is ultimately going to drive storage, demand for storage and growth in this particular market. And coming to PSP versus BESS, obviously there are multiple applications, multiple use cases, pros and cons in either side. But if I understand correctly, the demand trajectory is of the order of a few hundred gigawatt hours, which is obviously very substantial. And I think there is clearly room for not just these two technologies, but for new technologies, whether it is gravitational, compressed air, or any thermochemical storage, etc. And I think, sure, there are some lot of teething pains for the developers and the contractors and the supply chain, but I think that's inevitable. But inevitably, hopefully, process will become clearer and things will become easier going forward. So with that, I want to thank you all again. Thank you, Shatanshu. Thank you, Abhishek. Reddy ji, thank you, Arun, and thank you, Manasvi, for taking out the time. And I will hand over to my colleague Neha for the closure. Neha, over to you.
Thank you so much, Vinay, and thank you so much to the panelists for that very extremely session and sharing your insights. Thank you so much again for taking out time and joining us today. I would also like to thank our audience who were part of this webinar. We will be sharing the recording of today's session to your registered email account, and it will also be available on our website. We will meet you very soon in our next webinar. Until then, it is goodbye from all of us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.